What's going on, guys? Tyler here from TJ Cards, and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be mixing it up a little bit and talking about when do we send our cards into grade? When do we know if a card is good enough to get graded? So let's talk about it. But before we get started, if you wouldn't mind going down to that section below, smashing that like button for me, and subscribing if you haven't already, I would greatly appreciate it, guys. And don't forget about our like streak. It's going very well. We're only a couple videos away from another level 1 milestone. For those who don't know, our like streak, every single time a video hits a certain amount of likes before the next video goes live, our counter will go up by 1. When the counter hits a certain number, we give away some prizes. Last week, we actually hit our level 1 milestone again, so that giveaway is happening in tomorrow's live stream. We have like 5 giveaways happening in tomorrow's live stream, so make sure you guys are here for that as well. But for now, let's talk about when we get our cards graded, guys. So when we're talking about cards that we want to get graded, we need to keep in mind 4 things, right? The 4 things that companies look at when grading, whether it be PSA, Beckett, CGC, HGA, all the different kind of grading companies are all looking at the same 4 items: surface, edges, corners, and centering. But there are other things that we need to consider, such as, is the card valuable enough to send in for grading, especially nowadays with the grading costs being so high. For the sake of this video, I am only going to be talking about PSA. PSA is the single most popular grading company to send cards into. However, right now, cards are extremely expensive to get graded. The cheapest option for PSA is $200 for Express, and that's good for cards that are up to $2,500. Next is Super Express, which costs $300 for cards up to $5,000. Walkthrough is $600, and that is for cards that are up to $10,000. Higher than that, we do have premium grading for cards that are worth anywhere from $10,000 to anything higher than that. But those are in the thousands per card. But the cheapest option right now for PSA is $200. So when we're talking about cards that we want to get graded, we need to keep that fee in mind. So to send any card right now will cost us $200 through PSA. Now, I know that there's other companies like HGA that are much cheaper to send their cards into, like $50 a card, $30 a card, depending on the time frame that you want the card back in. But just for the sake of this video, we're going to talk about PSA. So for this video, I did take out a couple of cards from my personal collection here to talk about whether I find these cards worthy of sending in or not. Most of them are a no, actually. I only have a couple here that, I would say that this card is worth sending in. So first, we do have a LaMelo Courtside base card out of Select Basketball 2021. This card goes for around $20 all day long, $20 to $25 depending on where you're looking. What we saw last year with PSA was a lot of people were sending in cards all over the place, all kinds of base cards. The cards could be worth $5, they're sending it in. Card could be worth $100, they're sending it in. So we see a lot of base cards getting graded right now, but that was back when PSA cost $20 a card to get their cards graded. And most people, a lot of people who sent their cards in for $20 a card are still waiting for those cards to get back. And they submitted those like end of last year or even earlier than that. So right now, with the cheapest option being $200 to send a card in that's worth only $20, is just, it seems it's not worth it to me. Because I know for a fact that even if this gets a 10, this card is probably only going to be worth $100, $150 based off of the prices of the raws. I might be wrong there. This card could definitely go skyrocketing in the future. But right now, I don't think that I would get $200 back for a PSA 10 of this card. So is it worth sending in? Absolutely not. Next card I want to talk about. We have another Select Basketball card. This one is a Steph Curry Courtside base card, non-silver. So this card is actually only worth $7. It's a no-brainer. We're not sending it in. Now, if we had the silver version of this card, however, the silver version of this card goes for over $200. So would that card be worth sending in? Probably. Most veterans, most elite veterans like Steph Curry, LeBron James, Jokic, Luka, all those guys, are they worth sending in if you have the right parallel? Do you have a silver? Do you have a numbered card? Probably. Those cards are probably worth sending in if it's the right parallel. But in this case, a base Courtside Steph Curry, even though he's an elite player, we're not sending it in. So now I want to go into cards that are questionable. These cards are a little bit more questionable than the absolutely not pile, right? So here we have another LaMelo Ball. This is out of 2020 Court Kings. It is an insert card. This is not his base, and it is not numbered, but it's still an insert nonetheless. Is it worth sending in? It's not base, so people aren't going to be mass submitting it. We're still keeping that $200 figure in mind of price per card to send in. So when we're looking at this card, we need to look at the surface. Now, I'm not going to take the card out of the top loader, but this is something that you would do holding the card raw in your hand without a top loader or a sleeve on to see the surface. Is the surface clean? Are there any bumps? Are there any divots? And then we need to look at the edges. The edges are the edges of the card. Do they have any kind of like rifts or tears or anything like that? Dents. For corners, we need to look at, are there any whitening on the corners? For this card, I don't see anything wrong with those 3 items. However, the last item here, centering, we look at this card, and most people will take a magnifying glass and look at these things, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to. But for the last item, we're going to look at our centering. So we look at the right side here, right? Let's just look at the right side of the rookie symbol and see how thin that is, okay? And the right side of the S here in works in progress, how thin that is. And then we look at the left side, the same gap between the Court Kings symbol and the W in works in progress. We can see that this card is off-centered, very much so off-centered. This is off-centered pretty badly. So because of that, I know that if I submit this to PSA, it will probably come back a 9 at best. It could even come back an 8 if it's off-centered enough. So this card sells for about $90 raw. So that $200, am I going to get back $290 for this card at a PSA 9? Probably not. I could probably price this card at about $180 at a PSA 9. So to me, you're losing money right there, right out the gate for just sending this in. I wouldn't send this card in. This next one is a little bit more difficult. This next one is a Rickey Henderson Diamond Icons from 2021 auto out of 25. This is an on-card autograph. Now, everything about this card screams perfect. The surface is clean. The edges are clean. The corners are clean. And the centering is near perfect. I couldn't find anything wrong with this card looking at it, okay? But this card sells all day for around $100, $130, somewhere in that range. Cards cost $200 to send in, so right there you're looking at $330 total is what we would want to get back to at least make the same amount of money as selling it raw, right? The same amount that goes into our pocket. For me, if this card got a 9, I don't think that it would go for more than $250. At most $300. So if I'm taking that $200 and I'm adding the $130 to that, am I going to get $330 back for a PSA 9? Probably not. Am I going to get $330 back for a PSA 10? Probably. I'll probably go for around $400. So a little bit extra in my pocket at the end of the day. But to me, is it really worth that gamble, or am I more better off holding on to it or just selling it raw? For me, waiting a month or 2 months for an extra $50 isn't really exactly worth it. And so for that reason, in my personal preference, I would not send this card. And now, this card is very borderline. This card could find its way to be sent off. This card could be sent off based off the prices, the statistics, the edging, the corners, the centering, everything checks out for this card. I think this would get a 10, but for me, personally, I'd much rather sell this card raw. But in this case, we're holding on to it. Here's another card that is probably worth sending in, but I'm not going to. This is a Jalen Smith Courtside green circles numbered 5 of 5 out of Select Basketball 2021. There's only one other of these cards that has already sold on eBay, and it sold for just over $200. Now, this would be worth sending in if it was guaranteed a 10. However, the problem with these Courtsides is they're very difficult to grade. It's hard to tell based off centering. So everything surface-wise is fine, edges are fine, corners are fine. So it comes down to centering on this one. Centering on these court sides, and it's the same thing with the field levels for select football, are very difficult to do because of the design. So I know that it's going to be hard to get a 10 here. PSA loves to hand out 9s on these. So if this gets a 9, I don't think that I'm going to be able to. Same with the Rickey Henderson. I don't think that the math adds up of getting that difference back. So do I think that I'll get, over $400 at a PSA 9? Probably. Do I think I'm going to get over $500 for a PSA 10? More than likely. But for me, is it worth that gamble? Or do I just sell it raw and for sure get over $200 in my pocket at the end of the day? For me, personal preference, I'd rather do that than gamble between a PSA 9 and PSA 10 on a court side. Now let's talk about cards that are for sure worth sending in. So this first one here, you guys all know, is the James Wiseman RPA out of National Treasures 2020. This card is numbered to 75. And if we look at the surface, we look at the auto, it's not cutting over into the design. It doesn't actually go over into the blue there. If we look at the surface, it's clean. The edges, the corners, everything on this card is very good. I don't see any kind of dents. And the problem with these cards, these thicker cards, is that the corners and the edges are very easy to mess up, right? They're very easy to crinkle, to kind of like push together. But this card, it's been taken care of very well. So the only thing here is on the top of the blue. There's a little white spot, but I don't think that that's a big deal for getting a 10 here. And the centering, we're looking at the centering between the rookie symbol on the corner here, on the numbering on the bottom right here, from the top of the National Treasures nameplate here, and then on the left of the National Treasures nameplate. So it all looks good to me for centering. I think that this card would get a 10. However, because National Treasures did just come out, I did think that it was worth listing first to see if I could get a premium for the hype of the product, as well as the hype of a top tier RPA. And we're still settling that out. So if this one doesn't sell for the price range that I'm expecting to get out of it, which is around the $3,500, $4,000 mark, if we can't get that price point for it, then I do think that this card will be sent in, and I think it will get a 10. And then we're looking at probably a $7,000 or $8,000 card at that point. And last but not least, we'll talk about this Patrick Williams tie-dye out of Select Basketball. This card is numbered to 25. Now this card is going for a very high premium right now, somewhere around the $400 range for this Patrick Williams. By sending this in, I know for a fact I'm going to at least get $600 back for a PSA 9. If it gets a PSA 10, we're looking at more towards the $1,000 mark. So to me, that gamble for me for an extra $400 and a month of my time waiting is probably definitely worth it. So this card for sure will be sent into PSA. As you can see, you can come up with really any reason to send your cards in or to not send your cards in. You just got to keep in mind that there is a premium for sending your cards. Now, one day PSA and Beckett, they might start charging much less to send your cards, and they might go back to $50 a card or $75 a card. But for now, we're looking at that $200 minimum. It's very difficult to decide, is this card worth sending in? What it really comes down to at the end of the day is, are you going to get that $200 back plus the price of the card that you would have gotten if you sold it raw? If you're barely going to make anything more than that, it's probably not worth sending in, because it's not worth the gamble of getting a 9. If you're going to get a couple $100 extra out of it, then yeah, probably worth sending. But for now, sending in base cards is not worth it. For now, sending in cards that are at least going to get a 9 is probably not worth it. So we're looking at cards that we want to get a 10, because we're spending such a premium to send these cards in that we want the best possible grade, because we want the best possible return for our money. Now, there are plenty of other reasons why people would want to send their cards in for grading, such as protection, personal collection, and things like that. If that's the case, then that's fine, but this video, we're just specifically talking about monetary value. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's really all about personal preference. Do you think you're going to get your value's worth of sending the card in? Is it worth waiting a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year to get your cards back? But that's really all I have to say about this specific subject, guys. If you guys enjoy this kind of content, make sure to go down to that section below, smash that like button, leave a comment for me, and let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I love going in after all the videos and reading your guys' comments and responding. So make sure you guys do that. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell to know when these videos are going live. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace!